we now move on with our next panel, focusing on both technologies, blockchain and AI. And this panel will be conducted by Angela Kreitenweis. She's an AI and blockchain expert. And from 2016 until 18, she was part of the Energy Innovation Hub, and she set up the Berlin Venture Development and also the startup investments from scratch. And I would ask her to join me here on stage. And then, here you go.
There she go.
Hello. This is your applause, and this is your stage now. Entirely
Thank you. Thank you, Ole. Yeah, I'm very happy to have this panel about AI and blockchain. What does it mean for the future of energy transition? And I'd like to welcome our speakers on stage. First, again, this is Jennifer Scott. Yes, welcome again. For those who just joined, Jennifer is founding principal at Radian Partners, a private investment firm focusing on AI, blockchain, and renewable energy. Prior, she's been the head of business development at Thomson Reuters in Asia and led the firm's AI projects. She's a founder, sitting in numerous boards, advisor, and speaker, for example, in 2016, member of the Council of the Future of Blockchain at World Economic Forum. And just this year, you debated against Nobel Prize winner Professor Robert Shiller about crypto assets. Welcome here on stage, Jennifer. Next one is Trent McConaghy. Trent, you started your career as an AI researcher. In total, you founded 5 companies combining data, AI, and blockchain since 2013. One highlight for sure is Bigchain DB. It's a blockchain database with already dozens of clients actively using it, so it's not a concept, it's already there. And most interesting, Ocean Protocol, a decentralized data exchange, which is your latest activity. You conducted a successful token pre-launch in March, and for sure we are going to talk about that in our discussion as well. Thank you for being here, Trent. Yes, that's your applause. Then we have Peter Davies. You are an engineer, serial entrepreneur, and you're a drummer. You're holding a diploma in commercial music performance, interestingly enough. Welcome. So Peter Davies, in 2010, founded Greenrunning. And the mission of Greenrunning is democratize data, create a positive change in energy consumption. And you launched Verve, which is an energy assistant using AI to analyze and optimize energy consumption, and the Flux token, which is currently in the token launch, enabling peer-to-peer energy trading, and you're participating in the UK Ofgem Sandbox program, where you are contributing to the discussion for appropriate regulation of peer-to-peer energy trading. And there are many more news around Flux, and we will have that in our discussion as well. Welcome, Peter. This is your applause. And last but not least, welcome, Jutta Kleinschmidt. Jutta, you founded Green Energy Wallet, and that's a blockchain energy trading system connecting electric vehicles and home batteries. But most of us know you as a motorsport champion because you are the only woman ever won the toughest rally on earth, the Rally Dakar. You are, yes. You are working as an engineer in various projects in the car industry, and your mentor, you founded a program to support female car racing pilots. So what an amazing panel today. Now, first of all, Jennifer, you just recently in your debate at the World Economic Forum, you claimed, I don't care about the price of Bitcoin. So what's your point of view on the potential of blockchain beyond cryptocurrencies?
Thank you. That's a great question. As I mentioned early on in my keynote, that most people, most of the crypto bears, they very openly criticize, including a lot of Nobel Prize winners, and bank CEOs, surprise there, they criticize cryptocurrency. They see the crypto bubble as the destination. And I see the crypto bubble, when the burst, is a starting point. Because the reason I don't care about pricing is for anyone who really read Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, you will realize pricing is the least point part of Bitcoin. Because what Satoshi gave to us is actually a very powerful idea to ignite a lot of applications to enable peer-to-peer collaboration. So our human history, we are not the fastest animal, we're not the most powerful animal, we're not the biggest animal, but somehow we managed to become dominant on this planet is because we figure out how to collaborate in a very hierarchical way, right? Organize a very large group of people. But that structure has a lot of side effects, which we have seen for thousands of years. Now, with the reason I think pricing doesn't matter is because Bitcoin really demonstrates how easy it is to use protocol, enable a very large group of people to collaborate in a very flat structure. And I think, of course, that doesn't apply to every situation, every industry, but for many scenarios, including a lot of applications we're talking about today, is transformational. So I think if we focus on application, pricing really doesn't matter.
I see. So this is about blockchain, and for sure there's a lot of enthusiasm on the opportunities there. Probably we don't even understand the full potential, but with AI, this looks a little bit different. Chris Shelton, CTO of electricity giant AES, in late 2017 stated, "We are ready to be patient with this technology." But artificial neural networks are there since mid-1980s, and so what is this situation of AI today?
So actually, artificial neural networks are since mid-1950s. The perceptron was invented then, and the architecture that's popular with deep learning was actually invented in the early 1960s, nonlinear perceptrons. And the big difference between those architectures of the early 1960s and now is Moore's law, which has enabled more compute, more ability to store data, and more ability to gather data. That is the major, major difference. So now that we have orders and orders of magnitudes more data that we can then build these models on with high fidelity, with regularization, all of this, then we can actually start to ship AI applications that we couldn't ship 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I was doing AI applications in the late 90s with 20,000 data points, and I spent 4 months bringing the accuracy from 55% to 65%, which is still unusable. It fails 1/3 of the time, right? But now, instead of 20,000 data points, you'd have 2 million, and you'd run it, and you'd be done in a day, and you move on to the next problem, and you'd ship, and so on. So that is the major difference. Now, the challenge is that people, because data has become the moat, the algorithms are almost like a commodity, then the companies with the data are incentivized to hoard that data, to have data silos, like we've seen with previous speakers from Jennifer as well as Christian. And so the cool thing is, so AI has centralizing tendencies as currently conceived. Blockchain can help to decentralize it, and that's really the core goal that we're doing with Ocean, is to shift the incentives from data silos to making data available for all, democratizing data, just like you're doing with energy, I guess. So, that's where the big yin and yang is with AI and blockchain. There are many, many overlaps, but that's the most important one for the near term, is removing this shelling point of silos of data and replacing it with making it available for everyone, preserving privacy, of course, too.
I see. But before we dive deeper into blockchain applications, let's for the moment stay with AI and energy. So Peter, you started your startup a couple of years ago, but your initial mission was always using AI for energy. What's for you the potential of applying AI to the energy sector?
Thanks. Yeah, I think the way we approached it was always from an AI perspective. We started off from an energy monitoring project, first in the commercial sector, then a substation, and then through to the domestic sector. And the original problem was always, electricity is just a signal. And in every appliance you have in your home, the signal is made up of the resistors and capacitors, etc., on the PCB board. And actually, from just monitoring a single point, you're able to break down your electricity signature from your home into these individual appliances using machine learning. So that was our kind of initial start and our initial kind of product offering. And then it actually worked out that we were starting to see changes in these signals in these appliances over time. So we were using AI to actually tell you that your washing machine filter was blocked. And that your washing machine was starting to degrade over time. We tell you that you left your fridge door open and send you a notification, or that you left your hair straightener on just by the back of these electricity signature changes. And then we won a big project which was monitoring 100 different homes with solar panels, batteries, and using our little box to kind of do the analysis of the appliances. And actually we realized that now we were kind of doing this using AI to do the modeling. So now we've got the individual uses of the appliances. We're laying that on top of how that's used during the course of the day. And then you can start grouping houses to be actually, well, these houses with the solar panels who are working 9 till 5 outside of the home would actually pair really nicely from a kind of energy trading point of view with the homes where potentially they're working a night shift or they've got different patterns. And we're actually using machine learning to really characterize all these homes that we're putting together. And it kind of led us down the next path of actually, well, blockchain was just starting to kind of, really take off and revolutionize things. So it was just a no-brainer that, we had all this data that we were generating. And I was very passionate, as I know Trent is, about, the consumer owns that data. And actually now you can not only have the consumer owning all their data using blockchain for that, but actually the people with solar panels on their roof are now mini energy retailers. And we found that that was very powerful. So actually, not only do they own their data, but they own their energy. And with this whole kind of democratization of it, we can really drive it forward, not kind of having these centralized setup.
Yeah. Jutta, you have been so successful in the past, and then you decided to found Green Energy Wallet. So there must be something about it. So what's your picture of the new business models which can emerge with AI, blockchain for energy transition?
Yeah, I can see that we are in front of a big change for the whole energy system, because first maybe people think about how a motorsport person now is in this field. It's because from the beginning I was very interested in new technology, because I studied physics, and so I think that matched very good together. And then since many years I'm involved in electromobility, and we can see in the last year that this field is growing very fast, and we have a lot of renewable energy who's also growing very fast. And in the moment we have the problem that we cannot transport the renewable energy sometimes to the people who need it, so because the distribution net just cannot make it. And then I thought, wow, what we can do about that? If we have more renewable energy in the future, we have to solve that problem. And I think there is where the blockchain technology, I would say maybe the 3.0 technology, because it will be not a blockchain like we see now, it will be advanced technology, but comes in play, because we will see a much flatter network, like this smart grid everybody is talking about, and not this vertical structure which we have now, like a power plant who is providing the energy to the customer. So that will be more decentralized. So we will have little nets, like a village produce their energy and first, say, distribute it under each other, and then if they have too much or not enough, they may be distributed to another village. So that will, support the net because they don't have to transport so many energy anymore. And I think this is typical trading. So that means the energy trading will come much cheaper if we solve this problem on blockchain technology. And I think that's also where we try to jump in.
Yeah, Green Energy Wallet is one example where AI and blockchain is combined. Ocean Protocol is another example. And Trent, I'd like to know, what is the difference or the new capabilities we have if combine blockchain and AI?
Yeah, so Ocean itself is really targeting this core problem about data silos, right? And that's kind of how we approached it, by saying let's shift the incentives from data silos to making data available while still preserving privacy where appropriate. And so we try to turn that into an objective function, which is maximize the supply of available data. It's really a supply side problem. Demand side, there's AI will always happily eat whatever data is available. So it's really a supply side problem. And then we designed Ocean to realize this intent, this objective. And what it does is it gives block rewards every time you make data available and bet on it, on its popularity or its relevance, where you put your money where your mouth is. So if you bet on it and you make it available when asked, then you get tokens. So just like Bitcoin gives you Bitcoin tokens, if you add to Bitcoin's security, Ocean gives you tokens if you make relevant data available as curated by yourself and the rest of the crowd. So that's with the data, but then we also discovered for a lot of the privacy constraints, we actually had to bring compute to the data itself, or sometimes data is very heavy, all this. So Ocean, as we were working on the design and so on, we actually evolved it towards not just data availability, but also for compute, so privacy preserving compute, things like MPC, zero knowledge proofs, this sort of thing. So Ocean actually is, you can think of it as a data processing pipeline that's decentralized. So maybe you ingest data from S3 or from Filecoin or something into the Ocean network, through the Ocean network. It's sort of like a key management. That gets passed through to do some compute on, say, cleaning the data through, say, Golem, some simple decentralized network. And then maybe storing it again on, say, Ethereum Swarm, and then building a network, say, on SingularityNet, and then storing it again on, say, S3, and then maybe doing some final analytics. So it's an overall pipeline of storage and compute that Ocean helps to coordinate via the incentive system that it has. So think of it like it's really targeting these data flows that data scientists have using things like Anaconda, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, these sorts of things, but now within a decentralized context. So under the hood, the data stays with privacy preserved, decentralized control, and at the same time, as a data scientist, it's as convenient as ever, so you can get the outcomes you're looking for.
And Ocean Protocol is not mainly dedicated to energy industry. It will be a part of our infrastructure for all kinds of industries, correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's really targeting AI across the board. So we have partners throughout various industries, from self-driving cars to insurance and so on. And overall, when I say partners, I mean the network itself is borderless, permissionless, and all this. But one layer up, people can have their own data exchanges targeting various industries, as well as we're actually, with our partner company, Dex, they're actually building a reference marketplace that sorts out the legal, sorts out all these things. So, and we see that there's going to be desires for energy. In fact, of course, here today I was talking with folks who were like, hey, Ocean is a great fit for us. So we encourage that. So Ocean is really meant to be this substrate that can help to power marketplaces for data, as well as other functionalities for data above, supply of data and compute, as well as, end use cases for the data scientists of the world.
Okay. Jennifer, since 2016, you focus on blockchain and AI specifically with Radian partners. So what is your goal? What are you looking for?
The way I look at, AI blockchain, there's enormous hype, right? But at the end of the day, those are the tools, and we need to focus on what objectives we try to change. I'm very excited to see, protocols like Ocean, there are quite a few other, blockchain-enabled data companies right now, basically using a very decentralized approach to return that power to individuals, right? If you look at the most powerful companies in the world that made money in the past 25 years, top 10 most valuable companies in the world, probably apart from Exxon, the rest of the companies, they all made money from one another through data. So if data is so valuable and creates such enormous wealth, and if we are generating data every day, and then the centralized big companies demonstrated they're not necessarily very reliable, very responsible in terms of how they use data, and now we have seen very devastating public consequence. I do think that we're at the inflection point where individuals start to ask the question, can I own my own data? Can I trade my own data? So in terms of the blockchain-enabled company, tokenization is a very easy way to create micro-incentive to generate data. But I'm looking forward to see more and more companies create a data marketplace that enable individuals to trade data, because end of the day, I think the data ownership is not a privacy issue. It's really an economic issue, because privacy is very nuanced, and what's private to me and compared to what's private to you is very different. Or what's private to me 5 years ago compared to now or in future is different. So if we can have this capability of taking the pricing power into data generators' hands, then that's a very powerful, enormous economy we're going to create. And I think that's very exciting, investment opportunities for us.
And do you have any focus on location? What are the areas or the ecosystems in the world who are most interesting in that respect?
So I think when it comes to data, the largest market, no doubt, is China. But it's very hard to, do anything related to data in China because of the regulatory environment is very different. So I think the rest of the Asia, we started looking at Europe as well. US is tricky as well in many ways. But we're seeing actually Europe has, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm visiting a company based in Berlin tonight. They have very decentralized, their protocol as well, and they have very decentralized approach in terms of focusing on IoT generated data. So I guess, to putting this will not be my last trip to Berlin.
I see. Trent, Ocean Protocol is located, or huge part of the team is located in Berlin. However, you now started your, I think it's called, what's the program? The name of the program you started with Ocean to trial. Oh, maybe names doesn't matter. Whatever. You have your first trial phase in Singapore. And of course, I think whenever people are talking about blockchain and the exciting opportunities, I come to the question how to bring this to real life and how to really test it and bring this forward with the use cases we have today. So why did you start in Singapore?
Sure. So overall, there's been many mentions today of regulatory environments within an energy context or a data context, and some governments are very forward-thinking that can move quite quickly. Among them, I'm an advisor to Estonia. They move forward. You sit down in a room with 10 government people, and they're actually asking, how quickly can we change this law to make this work? Singapore is very similar, actually. So our partner company, Dex, has actually had long-standing relations with the government of Singapore, and we actually announced last week that we've been running a sandbox for Ocean with the government of Singapore data authorities. And of course, their customers are other government departments, as well as big companies as well, like Aviva, et cetera. So the sandbox basically gives Ocean some regulatory freedom while it's exploring to basically hammer out and flesh out Ocean itself, working with the partners and stuff. So that's been very useful, as well as the government itself has been very approachable. So not only from a data perspective, but also for the token launch and so on. So that's been very helpful. In general, though, we see that, and I've heard, it's been quoted that blockchain technology is the world's first global technology ecosystem, and I would fully agree with that. It's partly, I think, timing-wise in terms of, just the ebb and flow of technology, but also the particular characteristics of blockchain. These public blockchain networks really are permissionless, borderless. So we're going way out of our way for Ocean to be at the very core of the network, permissionless, borderless. It's not, it doesn't even know about any given country or anything. You can have the sort of regulations tacked one level up, and that's really, really critical, right? So while we are working with Singapore, we are also working with other national governments, including the German government, the UK government, and otherwise, right? And that's really important. We don't want to be, if you're going to be decentralized, part of the definition of that is you can't have any single point of failure, right? And so that includes at the jurisdictional level. So that's overall why we've chosen that. And in terms of use cases, there's quite a few that we've done, from self-driving cars to insurance and so on. And really, it's really important for us to connect the NGOs and big enterprises where there are lots of data with the AI startups and the AI people in general who need the data, right? There was the mention of XPRIZE earlier. We're actually working very closely with XPRIZE Foundation on the AI side to help work with their data sets that they've been gathering.
Let's build on that. Peter, as mentioned, you are currently launching the Flux token, so you might take a look, Flux, and you are currently running a trial in the UK where I think last week you conducted the first peer-to-peer energy trade. and you're shortlisted for the Ofgem Sandbox regulatory project. So why did you decide to join this program?
I think it's one of the key interesting things about a lot of these scenarios, and energy is one of them, where actually the regulators are so powerful and the systems are already in place, don't necessarily suit decentralization straight away. But actually, we're very lucky in the UK that the government is very, wants everybody to go out and get solar panels on their roof and wants to kind of encourage this peer-to-peer status. So they actually set up something called an energy sandbox. And what that's allowed us to do is go into kind of socially vulnerable housing association where they've got loads of solar panels on the roof. And those solar panels are currently generating between 4 and 5p per kilowatt hour. And that's just going straight out to the grid. And what we were able to do is put in a system, because everybody inside that tower block is currently paying 15p per kilowatt hour for all their energy consumption. So you have 5p going out to the grid that was technically theirs, but 15p they were using. So we use this blockchain peer-to-peer energy trading system to actually reallocate that energy that was on their roof back to the tenants. So all of a sudden we were able to reduce all of the tenants' power consumption and energy bills, most importantly, inside the homes. And the cool thing about our box as well is the cool thing about data, this box automatically produces data for these people without actually them having to change their behavior. So they keep using their washing machine, dishwasher, etc. But this box will tell them that, okay, you have a Zanussi washing machine that's model 350. So companies like Zanussi are obviously really interested in that data. So what we've done is set up this system so this data can now be kind of tangified for them, and companies like Zanussi come and actually bid for their data. But it's their data, and they can choose whether they want to actually give it to the likes of Zanussi. And by using this flux token, actually what they can do is just offset it against their energy bill. So our whole goal for this housing estate is to bring everybody's bill down to zero. That's not just from the solar, but it's everybody having powerful ownership of their own data, being able to sell it to these companies to reduce their own energy bill.
And what is the benefit of the Ofgem program in that respect?
So at the moment in our system, we've kind of had to provide 2 features for it. One is to allow cohorts to come in. So, we've got the energy companies in the UK at the moment, but Hackney Council, so a local government council, can now buy kind of tokens on behalf of the tenants to kind of allow this to happen. But the ideal and the dream is that all the tenants, so if you've got solar on your roof, you're a retailer, like you're a prosumer, you could actually be a retailer. But regulation at the moment doesn't necessarily allow that. So what this sandbox has allowed us to do is actually make the tenant a retailer, so that actually they can start charging people for their solar panel. And we have a matched marketplace where, your next door neighbour is currently paying 15p, so you could charge 10p, which is 5p more than what you were getting, but 5p less for the next door neighbour. So it's just massively beneficial.
I know that Dorothee Bär is going to speak right after this talk, the German State Minister for Digitization. And for sure, we can, give some messages to regulation, what is required for blockchain startups in the energy sector to grow. What would be your recommendation, Peter?
I would love everybody who is a prosumer to be a retailer. I think that's a key scenario, and therefore anything that will encourage people to go out and get solar panels on their roof and batteries, which allows us to completely decentralize the grid, I'm hugely for.
Would you like to add anything, Jennifer? Trent, probably?
I think regulators these days have a very tough job to do, because regulation by nature is retrospective. They're based on what's already happened to decide what should do. By the time they decide what should do, the technology already moved on. So I think it's hard to give one specific change that's going to be long-lasting, but I think it's the attitude. They should, every jurisdiction, regulator should have an attitude that to recognize they're far behind in terms of what's really happening, and they should have the attitude to enable from a small portion, dare to experiment and dare to enable, very innovative companies, even if it means they're going to make some mistakes. Otherwise, everywhere in terms of blockchain, in terms of data, in terms of energy, we're seeing regulators are one of the biggest risks, not enablers, but the biggest risk for a lot of very innovative companies.
Yeah, I'd say, from, blockchain and AI, but probably especially blockchain can really help regulators do their job in a better way. And we're starting to see, and from the SEC, this sort of thing, some of this is actually, they're starting to realize this. That's very healthy. It's interesting, you know, if you had asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, you know, the technology is moving so fast and regulators move so slow. But I've observed that the regulators, especially in enlightened countries, are moving much faster than anyone expected. And the technology is, while it's moving fast, it's not moving as fast as the optimists like myself would like. So they're actually more power than people might realize. And what this means is, if you're a technologist, like sit down with the regulators, open the door to them, and vice versa, right? And I think, you know, we've actually had great fruits from that, you know, going out of our way to collaborate with various regulators to help guide them in setting regulations. You know, I've had roundtables on AI and on blockchain. Next week I'll be at the EU Commission around various things, and this can just only help, right? And we've seen failures, right? Like BitLicense was way too aggressive. It shut down all blockchain activity in New York that was anything financial. Or GDPR, it's wonderful in intent, but it's completely missing the mark on blockchain. So the idea of immutability and right to be forgotten completely fight against each other. So right now, regulators are scrambling, right? There's actually this week in Amsterdam, there's a big event around that. So so that's great that people are sitting down, but so the technology is moving fast, and just it's super important for regulators and blockchain folks not to like view each other as adversaries, but sit in the same room at the tables as collaborators.
Yeah, that's very good. Jutta, building on that, what is your vision for the next 10 years in AI blockchain for the energy sector?
Yeah, so for me personally, for our company, I actually really want that the electric vehicles can be integrated into the grid like a storage system. That's what we are trying to do. And we are at the same point. We need changements of the regulation, because we really try to make a business model for it. But with the system now paying many times the same tax by charging and discharging batteries, this just don't work out. So if you really want to have a smart grid of the future and dealing peer-to-peer from the producer to the consumer, we need changement in regulation, and I really hope that does happen.
Okay. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. A big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much.